The only way you can take CBS Sports Radio 1140 with you is with the Radio.com app. Download it today and listen to us anytime, anywhere. We've got your Raiders covered.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
It's Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And now, here's your host, Scott Gulbransen.
Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas. Coming to you live from my bunker. Yes, coming to you live from my home studio as, yes, even the Silver and Black today, even CBS Sports Radio 1140, practicing social distancing. Oh, I am so tired of that sentence, that statement, that phrase, but we will get over it. But that's what we're doing, a little bit of self-isolation as we all do our part to pitch in to stop this thing and help us get back to normal. But I thank you guys for joining us again here. Also, make sure you can listen to us anytime, anywhere using the great Radio.com app. That's right, Radio.com for your iOS phone, for your Android phone. It is free, folks. Go download it. You can listen to us anytime, anywhere. As I said, also, as we do every week, we are streaming this show on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. YouTube is the best place to watch it. Go subscribe there to our channel. Hit the like button, hit notifications, and all that way. Every time we go live, we'll probably do a lot more smaller, shorter videos since we're all stuck here at home and there's a lot going on in Raider Nation, even if the sports world itself is not very busy. But because of that, I'm alone in this room. As you can see, if you're watching me on video, you can see that it's me in front of a step and repeat banner, which is virtual. Also, I'll show you on there as well. This is my second shot. If we talk about video, it's in my den. I have my two guitars hanging on the wall, so you'll see a little bit of that. But anyway, that's where we're at. This is kind of the new normal for now. And two guys that are never normal, right, are my co-host Chaz Osborne and Kelly Kriner, who I'm going to bring in now. He's got a twist a little knob here, so you'll see me jump out of the picture for a second. But they're joining me. We are working on our technology and our setup because this was unexpected. But I think we got it dialed in pretty good. Big shout out to Mark Bonilla, our executive producer and engineer back at the studio. He's at home actually today too. But they set this all up along with our program director, Paul Eihander. So amazing job to keep this station on the air. And I'm going to bring in Kelly and Chaz now. There we go.
Hello.
All right, there they are. Hey, we got all three guys here now.
All right, this should be interesting.
Yeah, it should be interesting. But guys, you know, and Kelly, I know, unfortunately for you too, work has stopped, right? So you don't have a place to go to right now. So we're all kind of in the same thing, Kelly. But I know I saw you for a few minutes earlier because you happen to be an amazing source of friendship and supplied me with some cigars, which was amazing. So thank you for that again. But Kelly, with all this going on, what are you doing? How are you passing the time?
Well, I'd never watched The Office, so I've started binge watching The Office, and I'm through 3 seasons in 3 days.
Yep.
So I've basically just got I've got a good month's worth of Netflix stuff that I'm watching.
That's good. Well, I keep hearing two people, Chaz, are saying they've reached the end of Netflix, like everything that they could possibly watch, which I find it hard. I find it hard to believe because the reality is there's so much stuff on there. There's probably a lot of stuff that people don't want to watch, right?
Netflix is never ending. Like the America's pastime was just watching the scroll and trying to figure out something to watch for about 45 minutes and never actually watching anything.
Yeah, and I know people are reserving funds because we're all either out of work or we're working from home and we're trying to be prudent with our resources, including food and all that stuff. But a tip, a pro tip, a hack, as they call it, a life hack, all right? A life hack is if you get a VPN service, like there's ExpressVPN, there's a bunch of VPNs out there. It does cost you a little money, but if you do VPN service, you can log in through Japan and you can watch Netflix in Japan, which has like every single movie you can't get here in the United States, by the way. Huh. So like you can watch everything that you can't get here because of rights issues. For whatever reason in Japan, they have rights to stuff to stream that we don't hear. Just a hack, a life hack for everybody out there for Raider Nation. Yeah.
Speaking of Japan, what are they talking about with the Olympics? Is that still
Well, they've there's a lot of people calling on them to cancel. They have not done that yet because it's July. I like the NFL getting criticism, guys. I think that people waiting a few weeks before they cancel major events like that. I know we've already canceled the draft here. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I think that, why don't you wait and see how the next 30 days go before you cancel an event like the Olympics, which is every 4 years, right? So to me, I get the caution. I'm doing it. I'm doing my part. My family's locked up here in the house, all that stuff. But at the same time, I think that, let's just wait on it. But the big thing, guys, the draft canceled here in Las Vegas. They also put out today, I saw a story in the RJ from Miles Simmons, our good friend, Simmons. He said that that there will be no draft activity in Las Vegas, which I expected anyway. But what a big loss for us here, right?
Yeah, the second that they started going around that the NFL was going to get rid of it, you knew everything else was just going to drop off. Because there's no reason because you had a lot of like sports blogs and internet companies and stuff coming out to have parties. The second the NFL was gone, there was no use for that. So it's just everything was going to stop.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
We had that economic guy on the show last year, right? And he was talking about the impact of the Super Bowl. And I was thinking, we have him back talk about the economic impact of the draft. And boy, what are we talking for? Maybe 500,000 people coming to Vegas for that week.
Yeah,
that's a big blow to the community, and just all, Las Vegas is based on tourism, and not having these people coming into town is really hurting everybody.
Yeah, it is. And having no one in town is just horrific for Las Vegas. And again, I'll mention, because it's Raiders related, the stadium continues to be under construction. It is moving forward. And just for a quick rundown on today's show, some great guests, and we're going to talk with Tommy White of the Laborers Local 872. He's going to talk to us about the stadium construction, how it continues to go, his men and women still working out there every day, and maybe some of the precautions. That's going to be at 9:30, so next hour. In this first hour, we're going to talk a lot about the Raiders free agent signings this week, folks. And not only that, we'll have Vinny Bonsignore from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He will join us. He's the beat writer for the Raiders, longtime NFL writer and insider. So we'll not only talk to him about the Raiders free agency class so far, what they've done from a signing perspective, but he'll also talk to us about the NFL because he knows so many folks in the organization. He'll talk to us about the draft situation and what they're going to do for the draft, which is going to go on in some form in New York City via teleconference, basically, and video. They're not going to have players there and all that stuff, which really sucks for those guys, but he'll be there. And then we'll also talk to him about Las Vegas and the draft and how it impacts the Raiders. Also, top of the next hour, really excited to really talk to one of the good young guys in the NFL, and that's Alec Ingold. Alec Ingold is the starting fullback for the Raiders, as you know. He now is in Las Vegas. He's living here, and we were supposed to have him in the studio today, but thank you, coronavirus. So now we're going to talk to him by phone just a few miles away from us here, so we'll be able to do that. So, guys, we got a jam-packed show. But the free agent signings, defense, real quick, I'll start with you, Chaz. When we look at the defense, what they've been able to do is really, in free agency, they're not all the way there yet, Chaz, but man, did they make a huge dent in what has been a bad defense.
Yeah, no, that's all we've been talking about. Well, that's all I talk about for the last couple of years, defense. And I tell you, Millie Collins, it's nice Rod Marinelli kind of plucked a couple guys from, we'll talk about Jason Witten later, but staying on the defense. Nick Kwiatkowski from the Bears, I know that he was kind of on the verge of a breakout season, and then putting him next to Corey Littleton. Boy, that could really be something there. And then, of course, we talked about Marcus Mariota. There's your backup quarterback to push Derek Carr. So it really seems like, they're really methodical with everything they're doing. It seems like it's really coming together nicely.
Yeah, and Kelly, overall, overall, you look at what they've been able to do thus far. Not every signing is a sexy home run signing, but they really got some guys in, I think, that are going to help them, starting with Corey Littleton.
Yeah, well, you can see that there was a plan because, the Byron Jones thing, you could tell was kind of option number one. I read that they actually offered more per year, but Miami gave him a little more upfront, a little more guaranteed. So when you miss that, Corey Littleton was obviously option 1A, and they made sure they went and got him. But that's a big, to me, that was a big piece, because now that sets up your draft.
No, it does. And that's the thing too, I think people forget about, is when you address a lot of those needs in free agency, that frees up what you can do in the draft. It also frees up the flexibility should you make some kind of move in the draft, right? So if you want to do something different in the draft, if you want to move up, move down, whatever they might be planning, this allows them to do that because they have addressed those needs. And I like what they've done. Yeah, there were a couple of question marks, and you're thinking, and there's definitely a few players, and we'll talk about them in the next segment of the show right after the break. Because I think some of them, home runs, they make sense, you get it, and then others, you're like, okay, now you're clearly taking a guy who hasn't performed up to par, and you're going to try to turn them around. So they obviously feel like they can do that, and that's the Raider way, right, guys? I mean, they're used to bringing in guys who haven't done great in other places and kind of didn't meet expectations, but they feel like they can do it as well.
Sure, that's every team. That's every coach and every general manager kind of looks at a guy and says, "Hey, he hasn't done so well in this, hasn't done so well with that, but I'm the guy that can take him to the next level." And you're kind of seeing that maybe with an Eli Apple and, the Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah,
those kind of things. So, right?
Yeah.
So every coach and every general manager kind of got that in the back of their mind, like, hey, I'm the person that can turn this guy around and make him into what he should be. And when you're putting your board together, when you're putting your free agency board together, and you got those names up there, you kind of daydream and you give everybody a little more credit than they should. And, we're seeing that with a few of these guys, and hopefully they do turn out to be really good pieces.
Yeah, you can only hope. All right, well, we are up against our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about all of these free agents. You're listening to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Don't go anywhere.
CBS Sports Radio. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
It is. Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Not even a pandemic will keep us from talking Raiders football with you. I'm your host, Scott Gulbransen, with my co-host, Kelly Kriner, and Chaz Osborne, coming to you live from my home studio. That's right. We are practicing social distancing, which is fine with us for now, and we appreciate you guys staying with us. Everybody's cooped up, but we have so much to talk about when it comes to Raider football. All the free agent signings this week, so there is plenty to discuss with all of you. And I'm seeing a lot of comments on our social media handles. Again, we are streaming live via video. Facebook, YouTube is the best place to get it. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe and then notifications and then all, so you don't miss any videos. But I bring back in Kelly and Chaz. And guys, we look at this free agency class, and you have to go with the big fish. The big fish that got away was Byron Jones. We know that, as Kelly mentioned right after we came on the air, and going down to Miami. But then you look at Corey Littleton, the linebacker position, which we've gone, all three of us have talked about ad nauseum since mid-last season, saying that they really needed help at linebacker. Once Vontaze Burfict was suspended, they really didn't have anybody there that could perform up to the abilities that they needed to on the field. But now, guys, they go out, they get Corey Littleton. This signing, above all else, is the biggest one thus far. But if you look at him, not only does he upgrade the position, but you like his versatility, Kelly. Here's a guy who, it doesn't matter what package. I mean, you look at some of the film with the Rams, he would be in packages where they'd have 6 defensive backs and he'd be the only linebacker on the field. Just how versatile and how good in coverage is he, Kelly?
To me, he's the best coverage linebacker there was last year. I know it's kind of saying a lot, but I mean, the guy's just good. And like you said, he's a true 3-down lineman, which is getting harder and harder to find.
Yeah.
Because you're in sub packages so often now. I mean, everybody's going for a wide receiver, so you're in nickel, you're in dime. So finding a guy that you can actually have out there for the bulk of your snaps is difficult. To find somebody as good and as young as him, it was the priority, which is kind of surprising to me, because the linebacking core is definitely the one part of the team they have I don't want to say. Well, no, yeah, let's say it. I mean, it's the one part of the team that they had no idea what they were doing with the last 2 years.
Yeah, there's no question. And Chaz, we look at this Corey Littleton signing. I mean, here's a guy that, he was at the top of the list, I think, for a lot of Raider Nation, a lot of Raider fans looking for this team to make a splash.
I think he was at the top of the list of a lot of other teams.
Yes.
So it's a huge get for the Raiders, and I agree with Kelly. He's such a great. The Raiders haven't had a great cover linebacker, since we can remember. And on the other flip, he's so physical. Just watching him, against Kittle and some of the other players, such a physical linebacker and such a great cover linebacker. Just what a great combination. What a incredible player they picked up with this guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But they weren't done at linebacker. So, I mean, we know about Littleton. I'm not going to waste a lot of time talking about him just because I haven't seen anybody associated with the Raiders, whether they be fans or journalists, that say that's not a good signing. And again, we're going to talk to Vinny Bonsignore from the Las Vegas Review-Journal after the next break, and we'll talk to him about all of this as well. But we look at now other signings, right? So we look at Nick Kwiatkowski. Nick Kwiatkowski of the Bears comes over to the Raiders. I think he's a good complement to Corey Littleton. If you look at that, I mean, this guy knows how to tackle, solid run defender, and he's the guy who can play in the middle of that Paul Gunther scheme, Kelly. And a lot of people, when they signed him, they're like, who? But for those who saw what he did in Chicago last year, he stepped in. He was not a starter. Until there was an injury, he didn't start. But when he got the chance to go in for Trevathan, after that season-ending surgery, he really elevated his game. And I think they're getting a guy here who's going to be a starter and is an upgrade, Kelly, over everybody they've had so far.
Oh, he's a big upgrade, in my opinion. We talked about it off the air last week. I was a big fan of his coming out of college, and he just got buried in Chicago. He got drafted by a team that didn't need any help at linebacker, who had a great linebacking core. So, like you said, when Trevathan went down, you started to see a little bit of what he can do. A lot of people kind of look at the contract and think, oh, you're giving this guy that much money. Could you have got him for $1 million or $2 million less? Maybe. But when you have the salary cap space, get your guys, So I don't even, I don't look at the contract. I'm looking at it as a guy that's definitely on the upswing, and he adds a lot of speed and a lot of versatility to a linebacking core that was terrible the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And his age too. He's younger, he's on the up, just what we talked about earlier. He's an up and coming guy. We're not kind of getting these veterans that are on the downside of their career. We're getting up and coming, hungry young players. And he's perfect for that.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Chaz. And if I look at this group went from awful to pretty dang good overnight because of these signings. And to me, there's still work to be done there. The NFL is about depth, and the NFL, you can't just sign these guys and say, okay, we're done. I think they're going to obviously look for a linebacker in the draft as well, and then we'll see who else is out there. But excellent work by, I think, Mike Mayock and John Gruden to focus on defense and to go out and get guys who not only are going to make the difference, but some, in this case, value. Now, you think about defense as well. Despite some of the young studs they have on the inside and even on the edges, they needed help. So they go out and they also sign Malik Collins from the Cowboys. Collins, only 24 years old, so it goes back to your point, Chaz. They're not bringing in some older guys that are past their prime.
Yep.
But he can flat out get after the quarterback, guys. He had 48 pressures, rushing from the interior. And to get that quality interior pass rusher that still has more potential to be good, Kelly, this is a big signing for them, and I think he's going to make a huge difference there.
Yeah, defensive tackle's rarely a sexy pick, and most Raider fans, I'd say most Cowboys fans wouldn't even have known if you just put his name out there who it was, because it's just something you don't look at that often. But I mean, you see the Colts just straight the 13th pick in the draft for a defensive tackle and paid him the second money by Aaron Donald. People are realizing pressure up the middle is just as important as pressure on the outside. So if you've got a guy that can get that, you got to go grab him. And that's the one thing the Raiders were lacking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to have to deal with Patrick Mahomes for the next decade or plus. And the one great way to deal with those kind of players, these new running quarterbacks, is that pressure up the middle. And that's something that we really need. And it's going to take a lot of pressure off of the guys on the outside as well.
Yeah, no, you're right, Chaz. There's nothing helps a defensive back like a good pass rush, by the way. So for them to be able to do that, and And speaking of pass rush, they also went out and they signed an edge, an edge rusher to kind of be off with Benson Mayo probably leaving. He's set to leave in free agency, and still Arden Key not the answer. Carl Nassib, of course, of the Jaguars, he comes over of the Buccaneers, comes over 2.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons. He plays well against the run, Kelly. But I think $25 million for this guy is way too much. So this is the one. I mean, there's a couple question marks, but to me, this is the one that I'm trying to wrap my head around. I just don't get it.
Well, yeah, you mentioned there's a couple guys on there like, well, why did they do that one? This one just sticks out as I think this is a terrible deal, and I'm wondering who were they bidding against to go to $25 million? Like who was in a hurry to be in the Carl Nassib business? You know, I mean, he showed some flashes a few years ago, but I mean, he's just done absolutely nothing that says I get this if like instead of paying him $25 million in a couple days from now you sign him, you're like, hey, he's a depth piece, whatever, but you're paying him difference maker money,
right?
To try to go out there and actually, I mean, I don't get this at all. I think it's a horrible signing. Yeah,
especially you have the young guys in Max Crosby and Clellan Ferrell there as well. And I think I think Ferrell will make a jump this year. That's just my prediction. But I understand depth and trying to get some help on the edge. I just think they vastly overpaid when there's other guys out there that they could, if they're going to pay that money, you could sign a short-term deal with some better talent. So I don't get it, but then again, we're not NFL GM, so we'll see how it all works out. Not every player and every signing is going to be perfection. And there are others that we'll talk about as well after we talk to Vinny. But guys, I think overall, if you look at this class, and we'll talk about Mariota, we'll talk about Jason Witten and all that at the quarter hour. But overall, I really do like what they did. And like you said, Kelly and Chaz, that shows that they have a plan, and you like to see that going into year 3.
Sure.
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
I was going to say, you would have liked to have seen that going into year 1, but at least we've got that in year 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was messier then, but we'll see how it all goes. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to step aside here in a few seconds. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Vinny Bonsignore of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. We'll talk to him about all of these free agents. Vinny covers the team. Also, Vinny covered Corey Littleton with the Rams for several years. So we'll ask him about Corey Littleton. Not only we know what he can do on the field, but we'll ask him off the field how we do that. We're going to say goodbye to my 2 co-hosts. We'll bring them back. Technology stuff, folks, until we figure it all out. So, guys, we'll bring you back here at the quarter hour and after we talk to Vinny. So we'll step aside. You are listening to the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
This is Jim Plunkett, and you're listening to the Silver and Black today.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Coming to you from my house. That's right. The Bunker Studio is in action. Thanks again to all the folks at CBS Sports Radio 1140, including our executive producer and engineer, Mark Bonilla, and program director, Paul Ihander, for keeping us on the air. Yes, we'll be on the air despite the building not being accessible for most of us. We roll on with Raiders talk because we know Raider Nation needs that about now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go out on our newsmaker line and bring in a good friend of the show, the Raiders beat writer, longtime NFL insider and reporter, Vinny Bonsignore. Vinny, welcome, buddy. How are you and your family doing, holding up in all this?
Yeah, we're doing okay, making the best of the situation. Obviously, the kids are out of school until the middle of April at the earliest. Kind of a interesting introduction to a new home in Las Vegas. But these are obviously trying times, but no complaints here, and I'm just hopeful for a relatively fast and healthy get through this period. And it was kind of starking driving down the Las Vegas Strip and sobering just to see that how quiet it is over there. And the one thing I think about is just the jobs that are being affected.
Oh yeah,
obviously the health is number one. But then, so many people who rely on tourism and the hotels and the casinos for their livelihood. And I just feel for those people. And like I said, hopefully we can get through this as quickly and as healthy as possible.
No, well said, my friend. And I think that, yeah, we're fortunate in that covering the NFL, it's the only thing from a sports world perspective. And I know we have lots of colleagues and friends in the sports journalism world who don't have a lot to do right now. They're doing a great job. I think this is where you have to be creative and start to think of things, and we're seeing a lot of that. But with the NFL, it's rolling on, and of course, this week, the Raiders, Vinny, very, very busy with their free agency signings. And I want to start with a guy you know really well, and the guy that was the big fish that they did land, and that, of course, was Corey Littleton, who played for the Rams. This is a guy who's going to come in here and instantly become a face of the franchise. He is great in coverage. He is just an all-around great athlete. Talk about him, though. You've covered him for a while. What are the Raiders getting with Corey Littleton?
Well, they're getting a great human being first and foremost, but secondary to that, and more pertinently for their team purposes, they're getting a player that can stop the run. He's a sideline to sideline caliber linebacker. He can rush the passer if you need him to, but he's also a guy that can stay on the field 3 downs because he can cover. He's a really good cover linebacker, able to defend linebackers and sometimes running backs. It was the first game that I covered for when I took the job was against the Jets in New York, and in that first game, the Jets just exploited the Raiders linebackers over and over and over again with these short, crossing the field patterns right in front of linebackers who just couldn't cover. And I remember soon after knowing that Corey was going to be a free agent, I was like, I'll tell you something. I tweeted that Corey Littleton, would be a perfect addition for the Raiders. And I remember, I still have a lot of Rams followers have a covering around there. Vinny, please don't do that. Don't take Corey. And I kind of had to laugh, like, I'm not in charge of all that. I'm just saying. But it just immediately, I went to Corey Littleton watching, how much the Raiders had struggled covering linebackers, having linebackers that can cover. So he fits like a glove, and then you add in Nick Kwiatkowski, who is also very good at stopping the run, but also adequate covering as a cover linebacker. And immediately within the first 2 days of free agency, the Raiders really helped themselves in an area that was a major weakness last year.
No, I mean, overnight they go from, like I've been calling it an empty cupboard really to being very, very adept and very good and improving that defense dramatically. Another move that I really liked, Vinny, was the Malik Collins signing out of Dallas. Here's a young guy who I don't think has reached his full potential yet, but he's playing well. And if you look at him, what does he mean for that interior pass rush?
Well, you just said it. He provides pass rush, and that was another priority that the Raiders had, trying to create more pressure from the interior, which would also help, your defensive ends, Cleveland Farrell and Max Crosby, and now Carl Nassib, guys that can get after the pass, get after the quarterback from the exterior. Now you have somebody in the interior who creates a major push, and only 24 years old, and obviously played for Rod Marinelli with the Cowboys. And I always say this: when coaches make changes from one team to the other, and then they start bringing guys in that they coached, it's usually a pretty good sign that they're really high on that guy, and there's a comfort level with that player. So a good sign that Rod Marinelli, I'm sure his fingerprints were all over this move, decided, hey, this is the guy that we need to bring in here. And obviously Ron Marinelli, the name speaks for itself. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he wants. And he's already worked with him, and he drives a pretty hard bargain with his players. So if he understands and knows firsthand that, that Collins can come in and be the high motor kind of a guy that he always wants on the defensive line, that's a pretty good sign for Raiders fans.
Again, we're talking to Vinny Bonsignore, the beat writer for the Raiders at the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Vinny, the one you mentioned, Carl Nassib there, that's the one thing that I'm having a little trouble with is, did they overpay? I mean, $25 million for Nassib doesn't have big numbers. What are they seeing that maybe we aren't?
Well, I mean, when you talk about a guy that last 2 years, 6 or more sacks, he's a player that you can feel comfortable in putting in as a reserve. And I think what NFL teams are showing time and time again defensively is when you get a rotation, when you can keep guys fresh, flesh, when you can go to your bench and be comfortable that that player is not going to be a major drop off from your starter, somebody that you truly believe can come in, and get the job done and be productive. There's a premium on that, and it costs money to be able to do that. So, and again, I go back to Rod Marinelli. When you have a coach with got that kind of expertise, he knows what he's looking for. And I'm sure from the minute he came aboard with the Raiders, they were breaking down film and looking at guys. And the fact that he was one of the guys that they targeted is a really good sign, because, again, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he wants. He knows what he's looking for, and he knows what could be effective. So adding Carl to that rotation, and then you start thinking about situational football. When you get into known passing situation, you can bring him in, maybe slide Farrell inside a little bit along with Collins and then Max Crosby, and all of a sudden you have four guys that could get after the passer. And in today's game, we all know how important that is.
Yes, absolutely. And let's spend the rest of our time with you today, Vinny. And again, thank you for spending the time. I know it's crazy for everybody. But when we look at the Raiders with the offensive signings that they made, and we'll start with the quarterback, Marcus Mariota. I've said all along, and we've said on this show, Vinny, we weren't this group of anti-Carr or pro-Carr. We've always said that, listen, Derek Carr would benefit from competition, from somebody who could be a really good backup or maybe push him enough to be his best. Now you have a guy, Marcus Mariota, who handled himself like the consummate professional that he is in Tennessee after losing his job. He was still a positive influence in the locker room. He's friends with Derek Carr. When he comes in here into Las Vegas, or they go into up to Napa for camp, you have a guy who's going to push him. That signing in itself, it wasn't surprising for a lot of folks, but talk to us about what that might do for the dynamic for both guys.
Well, number one, the Raiders made no secret that they wanted to get better at quarterback, and that wasn't just, we want to get better from Derek Carr. It was, we want to improve the whole position so that you've got, a capable player behind Derek Carr in case anything should happen, and anything is all options are on the table. I don't think that Marcus Mariota was brought in here to take Derek Carr's job or anything like that, and it's going to be difficult for him, to get acclimated, because we're probably dealing with an extremely condensed offseason, which means OTAs may or may not happen. So his first introduction to the Raiders could conceivably come during training camp. So that means a whole offseason has been wiped out in terms of him being able to, to develop chemistry and get with players and be with the Raiders for an extended period of time. That said, and I don't think that the intent was for him to come in and replace Derek Carr. This is what you said, create some competition, push your starter. But in the NFL, anything is possible. And all Marcus Mariota or anyone has to do is really look back at his experience with the Tennessee Titans this time last year. The Titans brought in Ryan Tannehill, who raised many eyebrows over that move. I mean, Ryan Tannehill was essentially a cast-off for the Miami Dolphins. He was going someplace to try to get back on his feet again, but I don't think anyone at the time was saying he's going to take Marcus Mariota's job. But anything is possible in the NFL, and one slip and one opportunity given and one opportunity seized by a player, and that's what Ryan Tannehill did last year with Tennessee. All of a sudden, both players' fate completely changes, and Ryan Tannehill seizes that opportunity, takes the Titans to the AFC Championship game, is awarded with a long-term lucrative contract, and Marcus Mariota is now looking for a job. I'm not saying that's going to happen with the Raiders, but again, anything is possible. So the good news for the Raiders is it looks like they have at the very least, a capable backup, and you never know what can happen beyond that.
Yeah, and I think competition is good, just having a better guy behind you, even if he is going to be the backup for certain, which we don't know, but we believe to be the case. It certainly does that better. Vinny, we got about a minute left with you. I think this, and I've gotten more and more folks on our video channels and social media channels here today asking me, they want to ask you about the Jason Witten signing. The Raiders now have 5 guys, I think, at tight end. What was it with Jason Witten? Why did they go out and sign him at this point in his career?
Well, number one, he was still productive last year, with the Dallas Cowboys. Number two, and I think the Tennessee Titans showed this when they had 2 tight ends on the field, 12 personnel. They really got after it with 12 personnel, 2 tight ends on the field, sometimes 3 tight ends. running the ball and being physical and being multiple and putting stress on defenses because you're lining tight ends up all over the field, on the line of scrimmage, in the slot, out wide, and guys that can do different things as far as being blockers and pass catchers and route runners and everything, downfield blockers. So from that standpoint, he can still play. Secondarily to that, this is a young locker room, and it kind of reminds me of the 2016 Rams, where they were terrible in 2016, but they had a lot of young players that had some leadership capabilities. I just don't think that they knew quite how to put it together or were ready to lead yet. Well, they bring in an Andrew Whitworth. Granted, Andrew Whitworth was still is a Pro Bowl caliber player, but he came in at 35 years old, 36 years old, and immediately his presence in that locker room was felt, was known, and was appreciated and was effective. And I think that Jason Witten can kind of serve that same purpose. And when we go back to the kind of offseason that they may have, they may not have an OTA. They may go right to training camp. And when you could have an older player, an experienced player, and somebody that has respect across the league and will have that kind of respect in the Raiders locker room, that could go a long way in keeping things together in what could be not only just the lack of OTAs, but this is a team that's still moving from Oakland to Las Vegas. So you could serve that role as well. Lots
of things to solidify and get ready, and then you add in all of this virus crisis, and it just makes it all even messier, but looks like they're doing well. And Vinny, as always, we appreciate the job that you do and the coverage. You've been on top of all of this. Make sure you follow Vinny on Twitter and also read him in the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And Vinny, I'm sure we'll have you on again very, very soon. Take care, and may your family take care as well.
You too, absolutely. And everybody just stay safe and do what we got to do to get past this.
Well said, my friend. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we'll close out the first hour. Top of the second hour, don't miss it. Fullback Alec Ingold will join us here on the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
CBS Sports Radio. The only way to take Silver and Black today with you is with a radio.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. A little surprise and fun for you on the video if you're watching us on YouTube right now. My background. Thanks to Ed Marshall, who recommended this, that I have a toilet paper background for my green screen in my home studio, which we are broadcasting the show from live today. So there you go. I hope you're happy, Ed. Hope you enjoy that. But anyway, we move on with the show. Guys, you heard Vinny, again, bring back in my co-host Chaz Osborne and Kelly Kriner. Guys, you heard Vinny talk about the free agents. Makes all the sense in the world. Out of all of those free agents, what one guy makes you shake your head the most? And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying they had such a good early time in free agency. And I think they've nailed it pretty much. But what one guy, and I'll start with you, Kelly, what one guy really for you, you're just shaking your head?
Well, I kind of went over it earlier when we were talking about it.
Nassib?
I think there's a lot better use for that money than Nassib. And I think even if you like him, like I said, who are they bidding against? I think he's still out there. I think he's still available now, and you get him at 60% of that money.
Yeah, that's sounds like Chaz fell down there. You all right, Chaz?
That wasn't me.
That wasn't you? No. Anyway, again, we're in new territory here, and I think we're doing pretty dang good. But Chaz, what about for you? I mean, Nelson Aguilar yesterday gets signed at wide receiver, a guy who really has had a bad case of the drops. He had the good game in the Super Bowl. Of course, when it counted, he did really well. And coming out of USC, great talent. Is he that guy for you?
Right. I'm not a head shaker negative kind of guy. I'm sure, I trust in the brain trust with the Raiders. I know that they know what they're doing. And Aguilar, here's a first round pick. And, he started a little bit slow. But then, like you said, he did come on in that Super Bowl run that they had. Last year, he was battling injuries. I know he missed a few games and he had a few drops. So he didn't look, just from the optics of it, he didn't look like he had a very good season. But, that's the kind of thing, you talk about with guys change of scenery. And this is, one of those players that can just benefit from a change of scenery, get a fresh start. Hopefully kind of the same thing with Eli Apple and a couple of these other guys. And, Vinny made a great point with we've kind of got a young team here, and we need a little veteran leadership, and we need some guys that can step in and do some things. So I think so far that the Raiders are doing a great job with everything. I'm not going to shake my head at any of these signings until we get a chance to see them up close and personal.
Well, and again, like I said at the top of after the break, top of the segment, was the fact that you know what, they nailed it. I mean, that defense improved vastly with the moves that they made. Now, Kelly, with about a minute and 20 seconds we have left before the top of the hour sports update, how does this impact the draft in your view? If you look at this now, I still think they grab a wide receiver, but with that number 19 pick, if there's takers, if there's situations that present themselves, do you think maybe they may trade down out of that first round, that 19, or trade back in the first round?
It's definitely possible. I mean, everybody wants to trade down. You have to have a partner. Yep. And I think keep them from doing that unless, like, if they trade back, it won't be far. They might be afraid that somebody will trade back in the first and like, if they want Jalen Hurts, they're probably going to have to take him in the first round at this point, because you're going to get that 5th-year option, and that somebody may trade up to get him. There's no way I would take him at 19. If you move down to 24, 25, might think, who knows? To me, the Mariota thing would kind of take him out of that, because now you got 3 guys that are basically all the same. But the Aguilar signing's great, just so we can keep that news footage of that guy throwing him under the bus with the fire. Because I watched that 10 times yesterday. And it's still hilarious.
It is. Yeah. But
the biggest draft thing for me, though, because I was dead set that they were going to probably take Murray at 12. I think that's off the table now, which opens it up for that wide receiver they desperately need.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think a lot of folks are excited about that too, and I don't think they're done in free agency on defense or in the draft. All right, guys, we're going to step aside. We're going to say goodbye to Kelly and Chaz. We'll bring them back towards the end of the show, guys. Thank you so much. When we come back after the CBS Sports Update at the top of the hour, we will be joined by Raiders starting fullback, one of the really good young guys in the NFL, Mr. Alec Ingold will join us. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to the social distancing version of the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Las Vegas is a Raiders town, so keep up with the team as they set their sights on making our town their home. Hi, it's Scott Gulbransen, host of Las Vegas's only all-Raiders talk show, Silver and Black Today. Be our guest every Sunday from 8 to 10 a.m. as we talk all things Silver and Black. Interviews with coaches, players, and Raiders greats are all part of the agenda. That's Silver and Black Today, Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. on CBS Sports Radio.
We've got your Raiders covered.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
It's Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And now, here's your host, Scott Gulbransen.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Yes, the sports world is sort of stopped, but Raider Nation never does. And the NFL moves forward as we had a busy week in free agency, not only for the Raiders, but around the league. But we're going to take a pause from talking about free agents and instead talk with one of the great surprises last year, one of the guys that I know Raider Nation very excited about. They talk to him about him with us all the time, and that, of course, is fullback Alec Ingold. And Alec joins us here from Las Vegas. You were supposed to be in the studio, my man, but we're all stuck inside. How you doing with all of this and kind of being cooped up?
We're making it work, man. That's for sure. Would have been nice to be in the studio and drive around a little bit, but we're all doing our part.
We are, and we definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. And Alec, last year you come out of the University of Wisconsin, undrafted rookie. You make the team, supplanting a veteran who'd come over, had relationships with coaches, but you really worked hard. And one of the things that I know from looking into your past and following you through this journey is that's one thing that you do. You're a guy. A lot of evaluators will talk about a guy on the football field having kind of that high motor. You're that type of guy. You don't know when to turn it off, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where if there's anything that I want to be, it's going to be that. Want to outwork people. I think it's just something that I've always, grown up, just parents kind of instilled in me, and I think that's something that you put on a football field and people, it's a contagious energy for a team for sure.
Yeah, and of course, John Gruden, known for loving his fullbacks and tight ends, and you guys just went out and signed 2 more tight ends in free agency early on. But you look at your career, starting, you're from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Not a lot of guys come out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. We'll talk about that. But Bayport High School, you're a quarterback. You originally commit to Northern Illinois, where you were going to be a Husky there. And then you change, you go to Wisconsin, you play linebacker, right? And then you switch over to fullback. So you've gone from quarterback to linebacker to fullback. Talk about that journey and what did you learn from each one of those positions as you were playing them?
Yeah, I mean, I think starting at quarterback, you want to play the game and impact the game as much as possible, and quarterback's the guy that touches the ball every play. So, moving with that was kind of, okay, you get to run the offense, you get to learn how to read defenses a little bit. Obviously high school, it's not too complex, but you still get the concept down. And then, some of the D1 scholarships came through, and Northern Illinois was going to be the college of choice. So I was really excited to be a Husky. I think that was kind of the dream, was to be a D1 football player. And then Wisconsin came into the picture as an athlete / linebacker. And then it was a big decision of, okay, are we gonna be a quarterback, or are we gonna see if we can make the NFL work? Because 6'1" white guy from Green Bay probably wasn't gonna make it to. I wasn't really the gunslinger, so so switching over positions was definitely a good thing, and it was kind of a leap of faith on, all right, you're gonna have to work your tail off, you're gonna have to learn defense, you're going to have to do whatever the coaches say to try and get on the field. And then that mindset kind of carried over and brought more opportunities, which led me to the fullback position.
Yeah, and again, we're talking to Raiders fullback Alec Ingold. And Alec, you get to Wisconsin, great tradition there, football school, and you split duty at fullback until your senior season, and then you go down to the Senior Bowl. You meet John Gruden there, and from what we've been told, and I think what you've said in other interviews, is you told him you'd love to be a Raider, and then you get to be the only fullback invited to the combine. What was that, a shock for you that you were the only guy there amongst all those guys doing like 4.3 40s?
Yeah, I think being thrown into the running back group with no one else in my skill set was a little brutal. But no, it was a fun experience. It was fun to get down there, and it was something where you work hard, you work your tail off, you get a little lucky, you're feeling blessed, and all the things had to really fall into place exactly as they needed to get into that situation. So you definitely feel very blessed and you feel fortunate, but then that's something that always motivates you more. You're like, okay, you get a little taste of what can be and how the hard work got you to that point. So it's like, why stop that?
Yeah, so you go into camp last year. Of course, you got all these cameras around. HBO's there filming Hard Knocks. They spend some time, focusing on your roommate at the time, Keelan Doss. And some of you guys got to kind of skip around so you didn't have to be seen as much, which was very smart in my view. But you're there, and then you got to beat out Keith Smith. You got to beat out a veteran to make the team as an undrafted rookie free agent coming in. How was that camp for you? What was the biggest learning lesson that you had being there, being in Napa and learning and then making the team?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was learning from Keith, honestly, just the whole mentality of, you have to improve for yourself, and you have to improve on everything you're trying to do and accomplish as a football player. So, instead of, looking at it, I know a lot of people like looking at it as a position battle and mano y mano and, Keith versus I, but it was really a race to see who could improve the most, who could show the coaches their willingness to play. And, I just took every day as physical and as hard-nosed as I possibly could. And Keith definitely taught me how to, show up every day and be a pro and all those things. I really thank him for that, because, you're in this competition, or you're in this weird situation for the very first time, and having a veteran kind of show you the ropes and just say, it's okay to, take these reps and, really show the most that you can do. It was something that it opened my eyes a lot, just seeing how there really is a brotherhood among football players. But then at the same time, it's like, you gotta play ball as best you can every single day. So I think, training camp was definitely a grind. But that's kind of stuff I love. I know a lot of people are like, you get stressed or whatever in football, but to literally have a situation in Napa where it's you wake up, you go to meetings, you practice football, you go to more meetings, you do walkthroughs, everything all day is about football. Like that's heaven for a lot of guys. So I think that was definitely a fun place to be for sure.
Well, and you coming out of where you did, out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and going to Wisconsin, playing in the Big Ten, which is, has its reputation as being a tough and tumble conference in college football. Clearly, you were made for that. But when you're at camp, I mean, again, you're an undrafted rookie, and you talked a little bit there about the competition with a veteran. But overall, the experience was at any time was it overwhelming for you? Meaning that you were trying to soak it all in and saying, "Hey, I'm here. I got to focus on the work. I got to focus on getting better," like you said. But did it ever seem so large to you, and when you sat maybe in your room at night and thought about it?
I think going into the whole OTAs and training camp and everything, I think I knew I needed to be darn near perfect and lucky and blessed to get a shot. So when I got to training camp and the situation was unfolding, I feel like you can either feel pressure or apply pressure. I know we talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
And I just always wanted to be applying pressure. I always wanted to be on attack mode. So I think I kind of just flipped the switch literally for a month straight on just like, every day, however I'm feeling, I got to wake up ready to attack the day. I had all my goals written down of what I wanted to accomplish. And I just really, looked at those and focused on those as best I could and kind of blocked everything else out. I think that really, that set the tone. And then, being able to carry that into a season was definitely huge for sure.
Well, Alec, talk about that moment you made the team. You knew you were going to be on the team. What was that feeling like for you, and who was your first phone call?
Definitely my parents. They've been there for me since day one. So just knowing that, we could make this dream a reality, and you really overcome a whole lot of odds in doing that. But there's a whole support system there for you that you want to share the experience with. So getting on the phone with them was definitely a priority of mine as soon as I could. And then it was kind of a reflection period. It was like, okay, we made the team, but then it's like, okay, was the goal to make the team or was the goal to be a good football player? So, we go back to film the next day and you see everything you did wrong the day before in practice. And it's like, all right, back to reality real quick. So it didn't really take too long for me to get back in the grind mode for sure.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure. And being and it's a tough game. It's a business. So if you slip a little bit, somebody else can come right in and take your opportunity. So I can appreciate your work ethic, and that's one thing that I think people really appreciate you. Everybody jokes about Gruden's grinders, and they look at you and they say that's the kind of guy that Gruden loves. But it has to be inherent inside you, does it not, to be the kind of football player that you are, where you're constantly wanting to be better and constantly wanting to not only make contact with defensive players, but also wanting to push yourself further and further?
Yeah, I mean, I think just waking up every day and being able to have my job being eating right and working out and watching film and talking to my guys, and I think just realizing how blessed of an opportunity that is and how lucky you are to just go work on your craft every day, something that you're passionate about. You get to enjoy those things. It's easy to roll out of bed. It's easy to go to the gym. It's easy to eat right. So if that's all you got to focus on, I mean, that's some good living right there. So I think, talking with a lot of the guys on the team it's that same mindset of, okay, this is what we got to focus on. Let's enjoy it. But let's also grind it out.
All right, Alex. Well, we're gonna step aside for a break. We're gonna hold you over. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about last season, what you learned about playing for the Raiders. Also, talk to you about Coach Gruden and the future. All right, so stay right there. We're talking to Raiders fullback Alec Ingold. He'll be back with us after the break. You're listening to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Hello. You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gulbransen.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas, Nevada, the home of Raider Nation, the capital of Raider Nation now, as we are joined by phone by Raiders starting fullback Alec Ingold. Been talking to him a lot about his journey to the Raiders through college and high school and all of that. And now we'll move into talking a little bit about last year in football. So, Alec, you get into the NFL. You start playing for the Raiders. You guys have a really good early season, but it was brutal with the travel, right? Because of all of that extended road trip due to what was happening with the stadium situation and all that stuff. Talk about that for you guys. Was it besides not having, I think you guys didn't have Wi-Fi when we were in London. We were over there too, so it was tough. But when you were over there and you guys were on this extended road trip, what did that do for you amongst the running back group, amongst the offense, and amongst the team to really bring you closer and to create that kind of culture that you guys were looking to do?
I think it was really important to build that culture. I mean, yeah, we didn't have Wi-Fi on the plane, so we were forced to talk to one another. Extra communication is always good, but no, it was something where every week we were kind of falling into the same pattern, the same routine. Guys are getting together at the same time, talking ball, and then we're flying so many miles across. We're going past the Mississippi River to the East Coast however many times, plus London. You get those long road trips where guys are going out to eat together on those Friday nights, out in a hotel all day Saturday. You get to spend time together, and you really get on the same wavelength. I think you kind of bring that band of brothers mentality, where it's kind of a road game. It's a hostile environment. You got your back, you got my back, I got your back type of deal. That's kind of how we were able to accomplish what we were able to in that long road trip, and then take a few wins out of there.
Well, one of the things that I continue as we have the chat going on our video feed and in other places in social media, a lot has been talked about, and a lot of folks want to know about your relationship with Josh Jacobs, right? You guys being that fullback and that running back, how much you guys spend time. We saw it a little bit in videos that the team put out and all this kind of stuff. So a lot of PR around it. But that relationship with Josh, I know you mentioned when you were on the podcast, the Bussin' with the Boys with Will and Duhan from the Titans. Those are funny dudes, by the way. I love their bus setup. But you talked there about, hey, when you think about like the Emmitt Smith and the Moose Johnson, that those guys, that lesson that they spent a lot of time together off the field, on the field, in study, all that. That relationship with Josh, how has that progressed, and has it surprised you in any way, or do you feel like you guys are really starting to solidify what will be a great group for the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think getting brought together and kind of seeing that starting point of the rookie year and how great he did, it was kind of like, okay, we can be a special running back group for a while. And now it's kind of like taking that step forward, like, all right, now we got to do it. It's putting into action. It's really doing all the little things. It's doing the extra stuff. So hitting each other up whenever we can, working out, whatever, keeping each other accountable. And it's 100% truth. I think the dude is just real.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of it can kind of get watered down when I say the same things, but it's just because that's just how it is. I mean, I don't know how else to describe the dude other than, he's a genuine dude who loves ball. And I think that's kind of where we both hit it off right away, is that we both like playing ball, and, having a good coach like Kirby Wilson in the running back room, kind of teaching us the ways of how he can almost like predict how we're going to perform based on our preparation, based on what we're talking about, how we're talking. So just being able to lean on a guy like that, and the amount of trust in the room is something that we need to build on, and then we can kind of set the standard this next year moving forward.
Well, and Alec, I appreciate that insight, and I think that that's what people are so excited about the Raiders' future on offense because of you two guys and what you mean to the overall scheme there. When you look at that offense, you guys had a great start of the year, and then towards the end of the year, things got difficult, right? And you struggled a little bit. Josh was hurt, and you had a lot of other things going on there. You struggled to score a little bit. What did you learn, and what did the team learn together offensively? Because I think outside, fans get very emotional, and they start to say and do things that aren't really reflective of what's happening with the team. But for you guys going through that end of the season where it ended a little rough, how much of a learning experience was that for everybody? And as a unit, how much more is it making you cohesive?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. It was a learning experience. We weren't just going through the motions and, losing tight games and just like moving on. Everyone's learning through every single part of that experience. So I think you get a lot of guys that all of a sudden we understand how an NFL game is played. We understand how close every single game can be. We understand how close, how important first drive of a game is, first drive of the second half is. Defense makes a turnover, how important offense is to capitalize on a short field, and vice versa. Offense being able to flip field position, pin somebody back. Like all of those things were crazy important late in the season when everyone's feeling tired, everyone's hurt, and everyone's pushing for that last playoff spot. And I think we heard a lot of coaches and some of the vets, talking about that, but you can't fake experience, right?
Right.
You got to go through it. So I think a lot of guys were able to go through it, but I think everyone was mentally there and everyone was giving it as much as they could so that, you learn from that experience so that the next time we're playing the Jaguars and it's a tight game and we think we have it in the bag, no one's going to let up, that type of thing. And just having that experience as a group, I think that's kind of, we definitely put it on ourselves as the players. Like we got to, keep working hard and keeping each other accountable throughout 60 minutes plus whatever overtime is, because you realize how important those little details are.
Absolutely. Again, we're talking to Raiders fullback Alec Ingold. And Alec, I think that's the one thing that Raider fans who have had seen their team struggle for a long time now, with some bright spots here and there, but they're really excited because you guys, even when games didn't go your way, no one ever saw this team quit. And I think that's a big deal. I mean, you're professionals, number one, so you shouldn't quit. But secondarily, I think it speaks to the character that you all have as a unit and the character that Coach Gruden has instilled in you and all the other coaches have instilled in you. And when you talk about Coach Gruden, right, fans have the persona. They know Chucky, right? They love Gruden. They love his quips and press conferences and all that kind of stuff. But I know playing for him, while there might be some of that there too, it's different. Is it talk about that, playing for Coach Gruden? What is it like for a player, especially for a rookie coming into the NFL for the first time?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I would chalk it up as, all right, so the fans love his passion and the grit he shows on the sideline. Mm-hmm. He brings that every single day. And I think that's what kind of shocked me, was like, he's getting, 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep every night, whatever. He's working out. He's in the film room before anybody else. And then like you show up and he's ready to go. He's already rolling. He's ready to go. And it's an every single day thing where he loves football so much that you can't be in a room with him and not love football. Like it's impossible. So I think that's kind of the separating factor, is seeing the dude show up every single day. Coach Gruden's showing up every day with that passion, with that grind, and it's like that little spark in his eyes that it's like, okay, it gets you going. It's like, all right, we're gonna learn something today. But it's every single day. So I think just loving that process and just understanding how much that can go forward. I think that's the biggest thing that I wish everyone could see. That I wish everyone could see the passion he brings every day, because it's contagious.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. And Alec, with about a minute and a half we have left with you, just want to focus a little bit on the future. Teams here in Las Vegas, you're already here as well. We're all stuck inside, but things will change. And as we understand more about what the NFL season is going to look like as far as the off season and preseason and camp looks like, for you going into 2020, Is there one focus we saw? And by the way, thank you for your exercise video for the rest of us that the Raiders put out yesterday. It was great. You did it in the garage. It's like perfect. But you are a guy who works out hard. We saw your standing jump, all that stuff, which is amazing. What's the one thing you're focusing on when you think about 2020 and that next step you need to take as a professional football player?
Yeah, I think I just got to be ready for the opportunities that are going to come throughout the season, whether that's expanding a role in special teams, in the running back side of things, up at the line of scrimmage, wherever I can expand that role and take something off of somebody else's plate so they can, they can excel. I think that's something I need to be ready for. So I'm just trying to be overall a well-rounded athlete, show up in shape, ready to dominate. And, I can run ISO and I can run the A-gap, but I want to be able to, take some stuff off of other guys' plates so that they can really excel in their roles and we can, get after it together.
All right, Alex, listen, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you spending all this time with us today. And hopefully next time we'll have you in the studio, and I'm sure we'll see you out on the field. All right, my friend?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, Alec Ingold, starting fullback for the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. I want to thank him for joining us. We are going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Tommy White from the local 872. He's going to tell us, hey, the stadium's still under construction, guys. There is no delay. Despite all the madness in the world, it forges on. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
CBS Sports Radio.
Hey, this is Tim Brown, Hall of Famer. You're listening to Silver and Black today.
All right, welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. We are also streaming live via the radio.com app. If you don't have that app, you got to get it. You can listen to us anytime, anywhere. Take us in your pocket, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. You can listen to stations all over the country, too. Great, great stuff. By the way, coming up next here on CBS Sports Radio 1140, MRN's classic race of 2004. If you remember the Ford 400, amazing race. That's coming up here after the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140, so don't forget that. We're trying to get Tommy White on the phone. We've had some technical issues with him, so we'll bring him on when we can. But what we want to do is talk a little bit about the stadium, because when all of this stuff happened, all of this, hey, you need to self-isolate if you're sick, you need to keep your family at home, closing all the businesses in Nevada. And really, in Nevada, everything is closed. I don't know. We have a lot of viewers right now I'm talking to on YouTube from all over the country and on Facebook and Periscope as well. It's crazy what's happening out there. But at the same time, we talk to people all over the country. And one of the common things that we get from folks is this. What about the stadium? Now, we have bigger issues in this country. We need to make sure everybody's healthy. There's no question. But at the same time, the stadium here in Las Vegas, the future home of the Raiders and UNLV football, clearly something people think about, and we're a Raiders talk show, so we're going to talk about it. But also the men and women working on it, right? There's so many folks, unfortunately, I'm sure some of you that we're talking to and are watching today who are out of work temporarily or permanently, whatever it may be. You might have a small business. All the businesses in Nevada have been closed unless they're essential. A lot of people are struggling. So to get the news that we got this week from the governor that the stadium project would continue. And some people would say, well, why is that? It's a stadium. Why are you trying to get those people sick, or could they get sick? The reality is there are major projects happening in Nevada, in Las Vegas particularly, that are very, very big, including the stadium, including Resorts World, which is our next big strip hotel casino. There's also massive road projects happening all over the valley, including some related to the stadium and other infrastructure projects. Those have to continue because despite some of the risk, and most of those people are working outdoors, and for the people who are working indoors, for example, at the stadium, at Allegiant Stadium, those folks are doing the distancing. They're doing the social distancing. They're making sure they're 6 feet apart and limiting the number of people who have to become in close contact with one another. They're being told to stay home if they're sick, just like the rest of us are. And so that's why we were going to have Tommy on, because Tommy was instrumental in making sure that when the governor was having these conversations about shutting down the state pretty much, that those projects would not go away. Our economy here in Las Vegas is losing billions of dollars And to take those projects away might set back the city significantly further. And so I think it was a wise move. You have to limit the number of people who are working clearly because we want to stop this like everybody does. But at the same time, they needed to make sure that that was going well and really doing what it needs to do to finish, because the Raiders don't have any place to go. As you know, they also opted out of officially their lease in Oakland, their option for this year. So they're not going back to Oakland. There was some talk, especially people outside this market who want to continually talk about how this is going to happen and that's going to happen. That was never the case. They were never going back to Oakland. If this continues for an extended period of time, we don't know that things will change. My sources with the Raiders have told me over and over again, it will continue, it will finish on time. So I don't anticipate any issues with there. The other question, and we addressed it last week, but I like to bring it up again, is the fact that a lot of people are concerned with the funding, the taxpayer money which comes from a tax on hotel rooms in our county. So every jurisdiction in Clark County chips in with taxes. Now, our hotels are closed, so there is no tax money being generated during this next 30 days. I mean, there's some hotels that are open, but the big ones, where all of you come visit us here in Las Vegas, none of them are open. And because of that, people were concerned, well, how are you going to fund the stadium? Is this going to become the burden of the taxpayer then? And let me explain it to you again. When they set up the funding of the stadium here in Nevada through what was called at the time Senate Bill 1, which became then the funding for Allegiant Stadium and also at the same time the expansion of the convention center here in Las Vegas. They set up a reserve fund and they funded that. It is funded with hotel tax, yes, but the first $45 million of that tax or of that backup fund, that reserve fund, was funded by the sale of public bonds, and those public bonds were sold. They sold in 90 minutes. They sold out. And so those public bonds, all of the money from the sale of those bonds didn't go into the general fund to pay for the stadium. They went into the reserve fund first for this specific reason. Because of the lessons of the Great Recession of 2008, because of what happened in Las Vegas, they put that specifically so that if anything happened, like we're going through now, that there would be a reserve so that it wouldn't overtax the taxpayers' burden on the stadium construction as well as the convention center expansion. So because of that, in essence, what we were told is that if Clark County did not have 1 cent of tax money via the hotel tax, so nobody came and stayed in a room in Clark County for 1 year, the 45 would cover the debt load on the bonds, on the bonds, to cover the stadium cost, the construction, the public portion of that. So as you can see, we're not there. It's a concern when anytime there's a slowdown in the economy here in Las Vegas. But that reserve fund, the fact that they were very conservative and they set it up that way was very important, right? So I think that's what's going to happen is they'll be able to tap into that a little bit. God forbid we're going past 30 days. I hope that by all of us staying home, by all of us doing our jobs in our home studio instead of the radio studio, all of these things that we're doing, I'm hoping what happens is that we're able to stem the tide on this thing very quickly so that the damage is not as significant as it could be if it went for a very extended period of time. So that's the stadium funding piece. I know we get a lot of questions from people about that, and I just wanted to make sure that we update you, because I think it's important to reassert that and to retell that story. So for those of you out there, because even if you don't live in Clark County and you're a Raiders fan, you want the Raiders to do well. You want to make sure they get their stadium finished. And for us here in Clark County, with a lot of other things that we need to get done for us and under current circumstances with people out of work and having to get them back to work soon, hopefully, that's where we're at with it. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. And we're sorry we couldn't bring you Tommy White. We're not sure what happened, but we will get him back on the show very, very soon. And coming up after the break here in a few minutes, we're going to have Kelly's Corner. We can't you're all stuck inside, right? You need some levity, and that's what our own Kelly Kriner will do. So we'll bring Kelly Kriner and Chaz Osborne back here after our next commercial break. But again, a big week for the Raiders. I mean, I love what they did in free agency overall. A couple head scratchers here and there, but you don't necessarily know. We're not all NFL GMs and the need for that as well. And I was really impressed. I have been with Alec Ingold. If you missed that interview, we will, by the way, have all of this audio in addition to the video archive up. So we'll have the audio up as a podcast. You can subscribe to that on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your audio and your favorite podcasts or radio shows, you can get it there. You can also rewind for up to 24 hours on the radio.com app as well. So yes, you need some apps on your phone, but you can always keep up with us, which is a very good thing. But Alec Ingold, just a great guy, was looking forward to having him in the studio. So we were disappointed over that, but we'll have plenty of time to get to know him in person. But just an impressive young man, impressive player. And I think he's just going to get better. He's a guy who just works hard. Watch the video he put out, by the way. If you're looking to stay in shape while you're stuck at home, look at the video the Raiders put out. Very cool thing that they did. Alex shot a video doing some kind of exercises you could just do in your garage, in a small space. So we appreciate that. He is a workout animal. He's awesome. And watch some of his videos there too on his Instagram too, so you can see what he does. But it's great that him and the Raiders are not shutting down, and they're saying, hey, here's some practical things you guys can do to stay in shape. And by the way, we're gonna give you Alec Ingold, our starting fullback, to walk you through your little workout, which is very cool. So check that out. We'll link that in the story. We also put the radio show up as a podcast on our website. We'll link that video as well, and it's going to be very, very soon. Phil on YouTube, Raiders need to start preparing for 2021-22. This season is looking more unlikely. I doubt that, Phil. I don't know where you're getting that. We are just we're just 8-9 days into this thing. There's no indication that the world's going to shut down for a year, my friend. I think you'll see Major League Baseball, just my opinion, I think you'll see Major League Baseball in a very shortened season, and then you'll see football. There'll be a very short preseason, and OTAs are probably gone. Some of those things that they usually do early in the summer or late in the spring might be gone. But let's stay positive, guys. As bad as things can look at times, just remember it's always darkest before the dawn. So we'll see how it works on. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, I'll be rejoined by my co-hosts Kelly Kriner and Chaz Osborne, and we'll have Kelly's Corner. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Appreciate you guys being with us. And bring back in my co-hosts Kelly Kriner and Chaz Osborne. I want to thank, of course, our guest, Vinny Bonsignore from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and the Raiders starting fullback, Alec Ingold. And unfortunately, we didn't connect with Tommy White. We will connect with him very, very soon, hopefully for next week. Tommy's always great, gives us such great background and information about what's happening out at the stadium, as he has since the very beginning. All right, guys, it is that time of the hour. That time when the world stops, pops open its radio.com app, and they say, like they used to sit for Franklin Delano Roosevelt's fireside chats, they wait for Kelly's Corner with Mr. Kelly Kriner. Kelly, take it away.
Hey, guys, I'm sure both of you have seen the movie Rounders, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's that part, the voiceover in the beginning. If you don't know who the sucker is at the table in the first 30 minutes, you're the sucker. Do you think Bill O'Brien realizes that he is the sucker when it comes to GMs in the NFL? Because, if you just look at some of the trades he's made in the last couple years, I made the joke on Twitter that he was trying to make that GM before he was announced as GM, that he was trying to make that GM position to where nobody would want it, so he didn't have to worry about getting fired as being a terrible head coach. Well, then they decided to make him the GM. Okay, awesome. So what does he go out and do? He basically, this would be the third running back he's traded for, because he traded for Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde. Probably losing both of those guys. He traded the best wide receiver in the NFL for one of the worst contracts in the NFL. David Johnson could have been ahead for anything just to dump that money, because the Arizona Cardinals put the transition tag on, totally blanking on the running back now, Kenyon Drake.
Drake, right.
So
yeah.
they're obviously,
that was today.
They're obviously keeping Kenyon Drake. So
Yeah.
why did they put a $13 million running back who was horrible last year? Question? Oh, I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't. So they're obviously going to be dumping this guy So what does the genius think? I mean, he's third level thinking here. I'm going to trade the best wide receiver in football for a second-round draft pick and a contract nobody wants me. Yeah. They could have gave up anything and got Johnson. And then, I get it. You know what? You don't get along with Hopkins. You got to get rid of him. Great. If you wait 2 days, you see what the Buffalo Bills got for Stephon Diggs. Do you think people are going to give up more for Stephon Diggs or for Nuke Hopkins? Obviously, Hopkins would have brought in a lot bigger draw after you see the number, after you see the draft capital that came in. I mean, it's mind. Did he only make one phone call? You know, was he in jail and had 1 quarter?
Hey, the dog's got something to say. Oh, that's funny. I love this is hey, but guys, this is before I get to your point, this is we are all broadcasting from home, so we're going to get dogs, we're going to get kids walking in the room. It's great. It's awesome. You get a little bit of slice of our lives, which is nice. But no, Kelly, I agree with you. And this is one of the things too when you look at what the Texans did here. You know, I think Raider fans are so used to the Raiders making these weird moves and all that kind of stuff that it often I think numbs them to it. But when you look at, I mean, I think that this is one of the biggest mismanagements of a roster ever, is it not?
It's got to be. I mean, it's mind numbing. You were up 3 scores, actually 4 scores, against the Super Bowl champions in the playoff, and now you're the worst team in your division, if not even farther down. I mean, it's unbelievable how bad this roster's got in such a quick turnaround. You have no draft capital for the next 2 years to improve this team either. You gave up 2 firsts and a second for Laramie Tunsil, who you're going to have to re-sign to probably the largest contract for a left tackle. You have no wide receiving core. You know, Will Fuller's great when he plays 3 games a year, and then you just guaranteed $18 million to Randall Cobb, who's so far past his prime, you don't even know what he has left. But he's now going to be basically your number 1 wide receiver, unless you make a pick in the draft, which you don't have any draft picks to get a number 1 wide receiver. I mean, it's mind blowing. How poorly, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm telling him I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Trade me. And if I'm Miami, I'm calling the Texans to be like, hey, you know those 2 first-round picks you gave us for Laramie Tunsil? We'll give them back to you for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, no kidding.
At this point, that's too much to offer because he would probably take less.
Well, and Chaz, for you as working in the NBA as long as you did, was there a time when you saw a move like this that's equivalent to the NBA where you said, what are they like? You can't even think like what they could possibly have entered their head when they made that deal.
Well, I dropped the call there for a minute, but I know what you guys are talking about. There's always been a lot of head scratchers. The main thing for me, you know, working in the front offices there is the one thing I've never trusted was a head coach. You know, head coach, his evaluation. You know, he's always looking around like he needs this, he needs that, and I really like having that pecking order. You know, you got your owner, you got your general manager, you got your head coach, and then everybody gets their marching orders from there. And just, you know, I know it's worked with Belichick and a few other places. But I think you just lead the coach to the head coach and the general manager, you know, the talent evaluation to the scouts and the general manager, right? Leave it in that order. It just for some people it just doesn't work. Yeah,
it's a tough thing, but I agree with that. I mean, I don't know. The Texans are now the poster franchise for just the ineptitude in that, and I agree with you, Kelly. I don't know why you would keep Deshaun Watson because by the time they try to rebuild that thing. He'll be either dead from injured from being hammered, or he'll be old enough where they won't. His skill set will be declining. So, but as always, Kelly, I appreciate you guys doing it. Kelly, Chaz, we're gonna have a better setup next week. But thank you guys for being troopers and for joining us here on Silver and Black today, and we'll see you guys next week.
I don't know what you're talking about, a better setup. I've got a great view of Chaz's air conditioner vent on Skype right now.
Oh, do you?
So,
he put on his video. He did. You're right.
His FaceTime video came on. There we go.
We're looking at Chaz via Skype. All right, guys, take care of yourselves, and we'll be in touch this week. All right. As we wind down the show, I want to thank everybody and especially our guests, both Vinny Bonsignore and Alec Ingold for joining us. If you missed that, we will have all of this up on our audio feed. You can get it on iTunes, Google Play, wherever you get your audio, it's there. I guarantee you, we usually have it up within 30 minutes. Might be a little longer today, but within the hour, the audio will be up there. We'll also have video. We'll have segments cut down for you any way we can there too as well. So just crazy. We're in the new normal. I'm seeing some folks in our chat on YouTube saying, well, if we have football this year, let's be positive, guys. I know we got a battle to fight here, and we all have to play our part in it, and we're going to do that here at CBS Sports Radio 1140. But don't get discouraged. We can do this. We're all staying home. We're doing our part. We're washing our hands. We're doing all that stuff. So let's kill this thing as fast as we can. For Mark Bonilla, our producer, and for Chaz Osborne, Kelly Kriner, I'm Scott Gulbransen. We will talk to you guys next week. We will be back next week with this setup. It went pretty well. We're not going to leave you alone, Raider Nation. We will talk to you very soon.